Got it. All right. We are now live. Allow everybody. All right,
Alrighty.
we're live, you guys. So welcome everyone to today's Wednesday Wisdom. We have an amazing guest speaker that we will have on today. But prior to us introducing our guest speaker, I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping. Those that are on, you have your cameras on. Love to see your smiling faces. So if your cameras are off, we invite you to turn your cameras on. We ask that you keep your microphone muted throughout the event. Unless you have any questions during our Q&A, you'll be able to answer any questions. And if you have any questions throughout the presentation, you can drop those questions in the chat. We will be monitoring the chat. So at this time, I would like to introduce our president, Joseph Sanchez.
Thank you, Tracy. Appreciate the introduction. Just want to welcome everybody to our Wednesday Wisdom today. We try to do these about twice a month, and just to bring information to our members and future members, to help you grow your business and make sure you have the resources to do that. Whether it's networking or just to get to find out what other resources out there to help you grow and to help you learn and be the best that you possibly of the chamber. So we are very fortunate to once again have the Black Business Investment Corporation sponsor for the chamber and we'd like to give Markeisha Johnson an opportunity to say a few words about the Black Business Investment Corporation and to introduce our guest speaker today. Markeisha, turn it over to you.
Thank you and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Markeisha Johnson. I am the office manager for Palm Beach County Black Business Investment Corporation and Pathway Capital Funding. We are a community CDFI, so we're a community lender for small businesses located in Palm Beach County. We speak to all individuals of all demographics and offer them opportunities to expand and grow their business in the ways of loans, microloans, small business loans, and equipment loans. We can be located through our websites, which is www.pbcbbic.biz or over the phone at 561-845-8055. Now, today I have the pleasure of introducing to you guys our guest speaker, Mr. Jevon Howell of ShopHowell LLC. The beautiful thing about Jevon is he is the owner and founder of ShopHowell, an innovative e-commerce solutions company that is dedicated to empowering small businesses and diverse brands to succeed in the digital age. With a passion for entrepreneurship and a drive to level the playing field for underrepresented communities, my apologies. Jevon has made it his mission to provide the tools and resources needed for businesses to thrive in a fast-paced world of e-commerce. Jevon holds a bachelor's in business administrating and in marketing from Florida International University and a master's from Babson College. The combination of education and real-world experience has equipped Jevon with the skills and knowledge needed to help businesses of all sizes grow and succeed in the digital landscape. ShopHowell makes e-commerce easy by taking the guesswork out of success. On sites like Amazon as a one-stop shop for e-commerce lending, consulting, and services. The team of e-commerce experts specialize in providing high-quality branding and designs tailored for Amazon's unique guidelines and policies. Jevon's expertise and dedication to his clients have earned him the reputation as a rising voice in the e-commerce industry, and he continues to inspire and support businesses on their journey to success. Now, if you're ready to take your e-commerce game to the next level, connect with Jevon and the ShopHowell team today. And that is my introduction of our speaker for today, Mr. Jevon Howell.
Well, thank you so much. And one of the things I did want to express is that I wouldn't have been here without the support of Markeisha as well. Pathway Capital I was a part of their Optimize You program, which they funded last year, and I came in second place. But of course, I am still chugging along. And honestly, it's thanks to the support of those in the community like yourself. And so doing these workshops, funny enough, the idea of it came about last year, I think partially inside of your program. So, the whole e-commerce thing didn't just spontaneously alert to me one day. It was because we were part of the Amazon Black Business Accelerator program. And inside that program, we've seen so many small businesses that were struggling in their e-commerce game. And honestly, it was a surprise to me because I joined it expecting that I was going to be learning from those people, but I ended up teaching them a lot of the aspiring businesses what they had to do to succeed. And so that was kind of like a turning point for me to start seeing like, okay, it's not just having the services, but it's also the education behind it. Because of course, and for me coming from a business background, business is just something I already inherently understand. But I realized for many people, that's not always the case. People don't always have a background in marketing, which I realized I did. So I realized a lot of things that I took for granted, most people might not inherently possess, or that's not what they basically spent their life studying. So it was a way for us to kind of give back and provide value for those organizations so that way they can be successful. And so in our presentation today, I'll be sharing with you guys pretty much the basics of branding and significance in e-commerce space, and also why it's important for your business overall, because let's face it, e-commerce is becoming more and more relevant. So without further ado, I'm gonna start sharing my screen and showcase this presentation which we've provided for you. Now, this is something that we started off initially as a presentation we did for the Amazon BBA, and it has evolved dramatically over time as, of course, e-commerce has changed and the ways that we found that people can best interpret this information. We try to bring in some real world examples from businesses that we worked with. So overall, please feel free if you have any questions at any time to chime in. This is not me talking completely. So if anything doesn't make sense, if you have thoughts of how this relates to your own business, please feel free to reach out or just shout out. I can't see if you raised your hand. So Markeisha, if anyone says anything, please feel free to call me out and basically say if I can explain it or whatnot. But I'll try to have some moments where we can have people essentially ask questions or share their thoughts or whatnot. Cool. So good to go. Yay, nay?
Good to go.
All right, awesome. All right, so I'll begin our presentation. So I don't need to say who I am because you guys already did an amazing job explaining what I've done. 29 years old, originally from Jamaica. I don't have the accent, but I currently live in South Florida, in Lake Worth. And so for our organization, our key thing is making e-commerce easy and accessible for all, particularly the minority community, because we know we got to support each other. And as the saying goes, it takes a village, right? So simply put, we help people with their high quality branding, design services, and educational courses to try and plug the knowledge gap and the service gap that currently exists for minority owned businesses. And so for us, that's all about making sure you look the par and that you're essentially having all the tools and resources that you need to basically launch and succeed in the digital marketplace. So today we'll be basically covering 4 aspects of this. And first and foremost, it's what is branding, right? So bottom up, basics of what does branding really mean? Because we know it can be a little bit different, right? Branding, advertising, marketing, they all kind of sound the same when you think about it, but branding is its own unique aspect. And so then we'll be going into why is branding important on e-commerce and on Amazon and the e-commerce space overall. Third, we'll be covering how to develop your brand strategy for Amazon and e-commerce. And then last but not least, best practices on how you can basically build that out, right? And so first things first, you guys can essentially follow us on social media. We currently have ourselves as ShopHowell on Instagram, Facebook. Our website is shophowell.com and LinkedIn. So take a quick moment. If you guys have a chance, you can follow us and subscribe, because the key thing is we always try to post important information on several times a week. So everything from reels to content, you guys can check us out and we'll be basically able to be reached there as well if you have any questions or thoughts or comments. But without further ado, let's get things started, right? So as most people already know, or I mentioned in the beginning, e-commerce is exploding. As you can see from 2020, it's already expected to basically double by 2025. And with millions of shoppers there every day and growing, as people start to see e-commerce being a better and better alternative to retail, it's something that small businesses like us have to really take into consideration. And to basically hit the point home even more, NASDAQ predicted by 2040, approximately 95% of purchases will be via e-commerce in some form. So I'd like for you guys to really take that and just digest it for a second. 95%. That's practically everything, right? So we have to make sure that e-commerce businesses, or businesses that aren't in e-commerce, I should say, well, both, really have the tools and then also succeed. And we're going to start off with branding. So first and foremost, I did want to have everyone basically chime in on this question. Can anyone name a company that you think has a strong branding presence online? And to add on to that, why does their brand stand out to you? So I'll open. There we go. All right, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh yeah, perfect, sorry. Yeah, so anyone name a company that has a strong brand presence and why it stands out?
Christine is Nike.
Can you explain why? Why does Nike have a strong brand presence to you?
Christine, you could take your microphone off.
I can put on my camera here.
Yes.
All good.
Hi, everyone. I think, Nike is one of those brands that I grew up with. So maybe that's why I find them significant with a strong branding presence. They also do a great job of partnering with really exceptional athletes. So I think that also brings them a lot of notoriety and a lot of presence.
Got it. So basically, it's something that, and I think you said it very subtly, that you've known them for a long time. So it's a brand that it appears that has been very consistent and you've basically been following it. And I think that's sometimes a very underlying thing that people don't realize, that some brands, their logos, their style has been the same for decades, right? And so they've basically taken something small and made it memorable. Think just how simple Nike's logo is. It's a check mark. But they took that and made it a staple and one of the world's most highly recognized brands. So thank you for that. Anyone else? Any other brands that comes to mind that you think has a very strong brand presence online?
We have Shay Johnson mentions Tabitha Brown. And Shay, you can mute yourself.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I believe Tabitha Brown. I mean, specifically, if we're talking about, she didn't start out as a brand, but she's ended up as a brand. And with her clothing and cookbooks and food and, her partnership with Target and the vitamins, all of those things, her brand has grown online because of who she is authentically, I believe.
That's a good point, actually. And that's something that it didn't just strike me until you mentioned it. So good call out. We live in an age, and I've noticed it already a bit, but I think you really kind of made me kind of become aware of it. Everyone now has a chance with e-commerce. And I think in a wider scope, social media and whatnot, to become in. And so we've seen many people slowly seeing their brands evolve. I'm not sure if you guys have ever seen, but that Snoop Dogg has his own line of wines, right? And I remember at first I saw it inside the grocery store, and I was just like, really? But then I noticed there were even like, I think Cardi B has a line of chips, so it's just crazy seeing how even people like, music stars, artists are shifting from music to wine to chips. So basically people are seeing now that, you don't just have to be, an expert in something per se to slowly start growing your a market share in a category that you don't basically have a background in. As particularly people who are sometimes looking to be coaches, specialists, Yeah, Tabitha Brown. I'm not familiar with what she does, but I know even people that do like cooking, they're becoming personalities. Kim Kardashian, I think that's a perfect example, right? And so pretty much these are people who have built a brand, not even so much around a product, but just about themselves. And I think that's just powerful because as you mentioned, you said they were very authentic. And I think that's the key thing. And going into the next slide, when we talk about what is branding, I think a core way, and we described it, by the way, branding is an overall perception and image your customers have on your business. I think the key thing, as you mentioned, is it has to still be authentic, right? It can't just be something where you're one thing today, then you're something else tomorrow, because people will feel like you're just volatile, you're all over the place, and you don't really have a point where you really stick and you claim as your own. I believe when Christine mentioned Nike, she said they're always working with the sports stars, right? Imagine if Nike went and you saw an advertisement of them working with, I don't know, Chef Ramsay, right? And it's just, obviously that'd be kind of off. It's like, don't you guys work with athletes, right? But that's also one of the small things that is very consistent. Nike always prides themselves by working with athletes, people who basically command excellence in athleticism. And they align themselves with those people because then it rubs off on their brand, right? And that's how you essentially start to shape your perception, your image, by aligning your brand with the right causes, certain beliefs, the values that either you or your customers believe in, or maybe use those values that you have to attract customers that you want to believe what you believe, and or maybe convert them to believe what you believe, if that makes sense, right? But for the rest of you guys that are here, how else would you describe it? Or what are the aspects of branding that you find that can be important? I think we can take authenticity, but what else can we probably add in there? What makes your brand? You can give a shout out or write it in the chat.
For me, it's consistency.
Consistency, that's very important. And why would you say that?
Just if I use a brand, I like to know that that brand is the same. I don't want to see one symbol today and then next week you change to something different. Every other month or so. I just like to see the brand itself and watch it grow.
Got it. And one more person, any other thing you guys are thinking about? Expectations are aligned. Juanita, please go over that a little bit deeper. What do you mean that the expectations are aligned?
Good afternoon. What I mean is there's consistency, but when I say expectations are aligned, you kind of know what you're going to get. So if I think about the brand, Apple, I use a lot, you just kind of know what you're going to get.
That's true. With Apple, you always know you're getting something that's supposed to be innovative, that's taken someone countless hours of thinking and going outside the box of what's possible. That's Apple's speak, right? And it's funny,
all user experience. Yep.
And let's see, I have someone else speaks to companies' values. Okay. And so I would even say, just because we have an hour. When it comes to even the values, usually companies or people, I should say, people usually don't always read on a company's values. Like, I don't just go and look up, what does Apple believe in? But you notice, Apple always says it implicitly, right, in their advertising. And I think brands do this all the time, very subtly. You don't always tell you, hey guys, they don't put advertising. Nike believes in athleticism. We believe in social justice. We believe in XYZ. You see them by their actions, right? So in other words, you can see them by their messaging, the tone, because of course you can have two brands saying the same thing, but the way they say it can be very different. You can also tell by their visual identity and also the customer experience, which I believe you just mentioned, right? All of this and then some really are what comes together to basically create a brand's identity. And the brand identity, you can say, is something that's not really owned by any particular person.
it's something that's kind of like owned amorphously by society and the people, because we all basically in a way start to define what the brand is. They just try to lead us down the pathway of believing it, if that makes sense. So sometimes you might see some brands that tries to say one thing, but it gets misconstrued. But that means it's basically that they had a failure in the communication with their customers. And so it's very important, especially as a brand that's being built, that you really try to be very strict, you be very consistent, you try to be very authentic, because especially in a time and age where everyone is trying to communicate that they're this and they're that, aligning themselves with everything from politics to certain causes, people can start to see through that, because if you say one thing on your social media, but something else on your website, people are going to sniff that out and call you out. So I'm going to focus on quickly Amazon's branding, right? And so this is something that I think we all understand. We know who Amazon is. And we all know that Amazon's messaging is kind of it's always black and orange. But one of the things that's very subtle is they also focus on their customer experience. So for example, Amazon has their delivery drivers. And for most people, they're never going to meet Jeff Bezos. But they kind of always try in their, customer service, where even the drivers, they try to make sure everything always looks and feels polished. You see Amazon sign on their boxes, you see the smiles. On the trucks, you might see funny jokes and gestures written in, like this box is filled with, I don't know, love or something. I forgot what I saw the other day. But they even try to put their tone on the trucks. And it's very key, because it's basically them, as their message says, their goal is to be the most customer-centric company. So basically, they always try to give your cake and eat it too, and have you basically have no issues with your refunds, no issues with your shipping. Their goal is to give people the best experience with getting their products. And I think they've done a pretty solid job of it. Obviously, they're not perfect, but for a large company, they've done a pretty consistent job of making sure that you can see and recognize their brand wherever it stands out. And I think that's our goal as companies, to make sure we're always kind of keeping that standard set. So in short, the purpose of branding is 1, to create a strong identity and position in the market. 2, to differentiate your business from your competitors. 3, to establish trust and credibility with your customers. And last but not least, to eventually, right, because the whole point of it is this, to drive sales and revenue, right? If you're doing all of that stuff and you're not making money, unfortunately, you're probably doing something wrong, right? So at the end of the day, all of this is to drive sales and revenue, but you have to do it by essentially knocking out these key aspects of making sure your customers can see and understand and value what you're providing, not just your product, but your messaging and your tone and your branding, right? So I'm opening this up to the group again. What factors do you guys consider when you're making a purchase on Amazon or other e-commerce platforms? So in terms of essentially, when you're looking to shop or buy on a platform, what do you consider between maybe choosing to shop on, let's say, Amazon or eBay or Walmart Marketplace, etc.?
Reviews. Shay says reviews.
Reviews. Okay. And I think reviews is a big one, because it comes down to credibility, right? And that was number 3 right here. Establish trust and credibility. And I think in e-commerce, that's a very interesting one, because the thing is, I would say that we've been led to see reviews as a way of getting validation of whether or not a product is good or bad, right? We live in a world now where everything is reviewed. I'm surprised they haven't started reviewing people. But let me not give people ideas. But seriously, like, people like to shop on certain websites just because they can see reviews and understand if it's good or not. In a way, when's the last time you really bought something that didn't have a review on it, right? When you think about it, when you go to a grocery store to buy something, imagine if they actually had reviews right next to everything. They'll probably change the way you shop. Unfortunately, that's not been the case yet when it comes to standard retail, like, brick and mortar. But online, that's the way that people establish trust. So a website without any reviews, likely that might make it where people can be potentially a little bit less trusting when choosing to purchase. But any other thoughts? Anything else that you consider when you're shopping or making a purchase on an e-commerce platform other than reviews?
The return policy, yeah, like return, yeah.
Return policy. Yes, that's critical, right? Because I think we know it, depending on what you're shopping for. Because funny enough, e-commerce has even changed people's shopping habits, right? I believe now with e-commerce, it's a very standard thing that when someone's buying clothing, especially, you're probably gonna buy 3 different sizes and return probably 2, and if not all 3 of them. And I've been guilty of doing things like that. I'll buy probably 3 different versions of something, pick the one I want, then return it. Why? Because I can't try things on like I would in store. So of course I'm going to be more picky. And so customers have started to value small things like that because that's a part of the customer experience. They want to shop without the hassle. They want to buy clothes without being forced to keep something that they don't want, that doesn't fit, etc. Right? And also shipping speed. Right? Right now we're downright spoiled. I can order something today and probably even get it by the end of the day. And that's the power of the logistics that's basically been evolving. I'm currently working outside today, and one of the things I even saw, is that they have Walmart vans that go around delivering people's groceries, right? Because people want to get their groceries now. While they're doing their work, they can get their groceries shipped to them immediately. And so depending on your product and what you're trying to solve or sell, it might be very important for you to get your product in the hands of someone as quickly as possible. And I can give you a quick example because of course not everything is necessary. One thing that comes to mind hypothetically are products that are painkillers, right? When you have like literally even a painkiller, you want that painkiller today. You don't want to wait until, I don't know, 2 days for you to be getting your painkiller. You want to get something that's immediately to solve your pain point. So of course, depending on your product and what it's really kind of aligns with, you might have to think, I need to probably get my painkiller. I'm using that as an example, a metaphor and a real thing. You might need to get that product to the customer quickly. If you can't get it to them quickly, they likely will go with someone else. And so we have to really start thinking about that when we try to sell products online. What is the need? What is the urgency? And we have to make sure that we can align that with what the customers are needing and expecting. Also with the platform itself, because the platforms sometimes have certain requirements or logistics or things built in that makes it either better or worse at delivering at a certain speed or fulfilling the need or the order at the time when you need it. Okay. And so now to kind of close out with the importance of branding, right? Before we go, we're not ending, but sorry, I just realized it was switched to my phone for some reason. Branding, the importance of it really comes down to, it gives you increased visibility to attract more customers. It creates a positive perception of your brand. It allows you to really charge premium prices because again, at the end of the day, right, there's very little difference between, for example, well, let me not say that, but really it kind of is like that $9 tube of toothpaste and the $2 tube. A lot of it is branding, right? You're just getting a cleaner box, a better look, but people think of the look as being an indicator of value. The next thing is it also helps you attract potential investors and partners because people want to work with someone who they feel is buttoned up, that's legit, that's credible. And then last but not least, it's what helps fosters trust and loyalty, right? Because again, by being consistent with your brand, by having the same look and feel, again, I talked about McDonald's, but even like as far back as Coca-Cola's design and branding has remained very consistent over 100 years, right? I think it's like over 100-year-old company now. But you can go back and look at the old style and the feel, and it's very similar to what it is today, right? Because they basically recognize that that is key to basically have consistency. So now we're going to be going into the best practices to doing your brand on Amazon and e-commerce. So the key thing about branding, right, is not that you just have to do it once, you have to do it all the time and everywhere, right? And I know I mentioned before that you should show your brand and have it be consistent across all the different platforms and the vibe and everything. But I can say that especially because there's times that I work with some brands doing their Amazon pages, and I would see sometimes where like the Amazon identity and branding is completely different from their website, to the point where I was confused at one point for one company whether or not they were actually one and the same. because they had different colors, they had a different look, they had a different feel. It was almost like they did a rebrand on one, but forgot about the other. And that is very, very, very important. You know, when you think about major brands, no matter where they are, right? And I can think of Apple, right? They're one of the few tech companies that actually has a physical store. When you go to the Apple store and then the Apple website, and even into the Apple store or App Store on your phone, there is a very common style and sense of identity that you see throughout, which again is very unique. I actually had worked for Apple back during the school days as a brand ambassador. And I still remember one of the things I found so interesting about Apple was that even on the back end, meaning when we as employees were working and you know, like the background stuff of, how do you call it? Like, you know, their management system. Their management system where you can log in and see, like, you know, your employee benefits and all of that, it still looks like the Apple website. And so this is something where not even the customers are seeing it. It's just us inside the company. They still kept it as if it was designed by the same hand. And I just thought to myself, wow, that's really amazing. So I think that's something where for me as an employee was just so cool, because I saw a company really kind of taking, you know, they're not just talking about it or just talking the talk, they were really walking it as well. And so I think Apple has become a super powerful and revolutionary brand, not by mistake, but because they really take it serious. They're showing their branding in all facets of where they touch, not just to the people externally, but also internally as well, because it keeps everyone on the same page about what they should expect and what they desire about what does Apple stand for, what their beliefs are, and what their ultimate goal as a company is. And so one of the things I also wanted to touch on again of how you guys can do that if you have physical products is your packaging, right? So your packaging, when you think about it, is the way that your product really interacts with the person, right? In some cases, what they see when they go to the store and they see it on a shelf, right? They're going to see the packaging before they see the product. Or in some cases, the packaging is on top of the product, right? You know, if it's like a label. And so you want to make sure that your packaging is both attractive and stylistic to not just get their attention, but to showcase who you are and strike an appeal. For Amazon, we say that you always have to basically appeal to the algorithm and appeal to the customers who are shopping, which can be more difficult than it sounds. But your packaging is really a key way that you're going to interact with your customers. And you have to make sure that you can basically get all of that squared away that I just talked about, like your tone, your messaging, all of that, but in a nice, concise package that doesn't basically throw anyone off. And I would say the importance of branding comes down to this, right? And you can just see it visually. This is literally a brand that we worked with. So they're called Ella and Iris. And so we pretty much started working with them. They were in the Amazon Black Business Accelerator program as well. And so the thing was, they came to us saying that essentially they felt like the reason why they weren't getting any grants or having people taking them seriously was because their branding was like what you see on the left, right? This was basically as homemade as it gets. You know, she was basically getting her start. She had the aromatics and everything. But the challenge was the Ella and Iris, you know, you just see an E, L, and I in cursive. That is not something that when you look at it, you think, oh my God, that is so authentic. That is very classy. That is this. But the thing was, that's where she was, right? So I'm not going to dig that. But the key thing is that is very important, because a customer, they're not always going to know your brand story. They're not always going to know that, you know, this is where you're starting off. A lot of times, like the whole saying goes, fake it till you make it. You have to look like $1 million to make $1 billion, to make $1 million. And so for us, we had to basically, one, sit down with her, talk to her, see what is she trying to convey in her imagery, right? She wanted to convey something that was a little bit rustic, something that was still reminiscent of her inspiration, because just to give you some background, Ella and Iris, it's named after her grandmothers, right? And so she wanted to have something that would basically honor them and still have a bit of, you know, like very vibrant, very colorful, and just really kind of still capture that bit of rustic look. And so taking time with her, you probably see like the slight post-stampy look of this. That was all on purpose. But ultimately, we had to create something that would make her product stand out even on store shelves. And thankfully, she's been getting tremendous amount of compliments for her designs, because it's not just something that is beautiful, but it's also functional. Again, when it comes to e-commerce, you have to also think about the fact that your images tell a story, right? It's not just that you're showing something that's pretty, but sometimes you have to basically convey information. And at the end of the day, you know, the saying goes, people can decide what they want to buy something within probably about like 7 seconds. You need to basically think about, what are your images of your product really conveying? And so today, you know, we showed a case, another product. This is a brand, Natupalm, right? They sell, pretty much to give you the concept, they sell heart of palm spaghetti. And so heart of palm, basically, it is a natural alternative. Instead of using like dough to make the pasta, they basically use heart of palm, which is super low calorie. It's keto, vegan. It's amazing, right? But the point is, they weren't really good at showcasing the value of it, because you might just look at it and you're just thinking, oh, that's spaghetti, right? You don't automatically think that it has all of these benefits. So of course, we have to take a step back and think, okay, how can we kind of keep their same branding, keep their same look, keep their same color, and just to highlight that key information. And even some small things here and there, right? Like even just getting people to understand, what's the value of this? How can I make use of this product? We took that even to thinking about, show them how to prepare the spaghetti. Because people, when they start to realize, for example, that, okay, this is a different product, how do I use this? So of course, we have to make sure that when we basically explain that, we did this in a way that was very clean, that was still very crisp, very simple. And then of course, having the beautiful images of people, you know, eating the pasta or whatever to kind of put it all together. So branding is really, and this is kind of going a little bit into marketing and advertising, but branding really kind of lends to that as well, because even when you advertise, even when you style things, you need to still make sure it captures the essence of this. When you look at this brand, you automatically think of fine dining. You think of something that looks, one, it makes me hungry and it's approaching lunchtime. But you know, it kind of captures what it's supposed to, right? The branding is accenting the purpose of the marketing. It's making sure that even when you're doing something that isn't even necessarily meant to be, how do you say, just to dazzle, it still dazzles unintentionally, right? One of the things that I saw, we were working on a project before for a PowerPoint. It was for a company, they're called Pound Cake. They actually won Black Ambition, the $1 million prize. We had to basically design the PowerPoint for someone who was trying to compete with them. And one of the things that we liked about Pound Cake was that every single one of their slides looked like something that you can put on a billboard. And I just found that to be such an interesting thought process and idea, right? But that's the key thing about it, you know, making sure that your products and everything can kind of stand out and be impactful and beautiful. Here's another quick example of how branding can change things. We went from this to this. And obviously the key aspect is one just pops, one looks amazing, one looks beautiful. And again, conversion rates increased because again, you're showing the value and you're also highlighting the beautiful brand image, showing that it's basically made of simple ingredients. That's a small thing that was key to their brand. So showing that visually was a key part of it as well. And so when you have basically platforms like Amazon, they give you basically a way for you to showcase your branding for your product even better than you can in retail stores. Because one, you can include videos. Two, you can include infographics. Three, you can include things like this A+ content, which gives you a way to basically show how your product fits into the daily life of your customer. So that way they can basically put, I wasn't sure about this product, but now that I see it can be used in XYZ, I can see that it can be used with this recipe. You know, like you can really start to lead people down the pathway of how their life is going to be better or the lives are going to be improved by using your product. And that's the power of e-commerce and good branding put together. This is basically how you can generally do something like this, right? On websites, people sometimes just try to put a bunch of words, but no one's going to read that. People like to see stuff that is beautiful, that captures the context. And this is, again, is another comparison. You can look at this for probably 5 seconds to get a strong sense of an understanding of what this brand is all about just by looking at their coffee. I'm not even a coffee drinker, but it makes it look enticing. It's superior. It's bold. It warms your heart, right?
That's a very interesting way of conveying it. But again, it can completely contrast with another brand like Starbucks we're all familiar with. And again, they try to highlight the top things in the beginning, which are we roast your coffees 2 days after you place your order. So again, it's taking the branding, it's showing people the freshness, it's showing people the amazing flavors, but of course they're taking it and they're putting it not just with their branding, that's again, beautiful, it captures the essence, it showcases their international sourcing, but also takes all of that and puts it together into one nice concise package. But the last but not least, because I only have a few more minutes, is the website, right? And the website is generally where people go to basically learn about you and pretty much get a strong sense of what you're about, right? The website is basically credibility at this point. Going back to Ella and Iris, the key thing here was taking what I mentioned before of consistency and also taking it with your branding. After we updated her branding, we had to make sure that her website matched the style, the look, the feel. And for many of us, that's sometimes where we lack. We have one style here, but a different style there. But making sure that it's consistent ensures that people see that your website is credible, sees that you're someone who's trustworthy. And obviously, I think depending on the level of quality your branding is meant to evoke, it might essentially be more important to ensure that consistency sticks. You don't want to basically buy a really expensive premium product and see that they're not even being consistent with their branding or packaging. So in summary, branding is a key aspect of your business success. It is not just how your brand looks, but how it feels and communicates. It can also include your tone, your messaging. Your branding should also be prevalent in your packaging, also on your website and social media, and all the other touch points of where your product meets its customers. So essentially, the key thing is to make sure that you create a full branded experience for your customers to where they feel and understand your values, that it's authentic. And of course, at the end of the day, why not just make it beautiful as well? So without further ado, I would like to kind of close out with this. So building a strong brand, bringing a strong and memorable brand that resonates with your customers is the key to drive more sales in e-commerce platforms. And if you guys have any questions, thoughts, or comments, please feel free to ask questions. And we'd like to thank you guys for taking part in this presentation.
Awesome job, Jevon. Thank you for that. Is there any questions? You guys, at this time, you can actually unmute your microphones and ask any questions that you may have for today's guest speaker.
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah.
So my question is, when you talk about the branding aspect and the client doesn't really kind of have a feel or an idea of where he or she wants to go with the branding, how do you kind of narrow that down and put that in some kind of package?
Yeah. So for us, we have a questionnaire, and we also try to go over it with you because I think it's fair, right? Like, I'm someone who, I have ideas, but I'm not someone who's like visually inclined. I know when I see something, I like it. And so for me, it's easier because I have designers. I try to talk to them, and they basically try to reason with my thought process. You know, we try to showcase, like, you know, share with us images from brands or businesses that you really like and the ones that you don't like, because I think that's really important. I think if you're not very, you know, design inclined, those are small aspects that are very helpful because it helps paint a picture of what do you really lean towards and what are you against. And we can basically try to help you curate that, because of course you're not going to always have the style or the look. Sometimes it's good if you do, but coming with, like, you know, an idea of what do you think looks great, examples of your competitors, and then of course trying to see what your own story and your tone is trying to be. You know, it makes it much more easy for designers to basically try to work with you and create something that is the whole package and aligns with your goals. And of course, if you want to edit something, we can always go back and do that too, because of course we understand that, you know, you might need a few different thoughts and ideas to work your mind around before you finally finalize on something. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Awesome. We have time for one more question.
Yeah.
I could add something, because I noticed, because you specifically started out talking about how getting Black businesses involved with Amazon. Is it intentional to show, and because of that last website you showed, you had a black couple on the website. Is it intentional to so when people click on, they realize that they're supporting a Black business? Because I see some Black businesses almost run away from it because they don't want to scare away their non-Black customers, right?
That's a very good question, because I've seen that actually a lot. So a lot of our customers in the Black Business Accelerator program, I've seen that they've always wanted to showcase that diversity, right? And I think that's even the hard part sometimes, even for us, is to be transparent as a branding company or e-commerce agency. Like a lot of times when we try to find the content, sometimes it just doesn't exist, right? There's a lot of pictures and stuff out there of people who are Caucasian, white, but there's also very limited images of people who are minorities in doing certain things of certain lifestyles, right? And so I think for you asking that question, I think it really comes down to you. Like we're obviously open to whatever you want, but I've seen that more and more minorities and Black businesses are trying to basically showcase that. Amazon recently released it, I believe, a year ago or 2 years ago, where you can now put a certification that your business is Black owned or minority owned or woman owned. And I think that is basically, opening the door for more people to consider whether or not they want to support these businesses, because of course, I think there likely are people going to be more for it or against it. But I think it's something where I think the jury is still out as to whether or not that is going to be a big way of getting more people to trust your business. But I think there's people who I think now are more conscientious about trying to support causes that really aligns with maybe how they feel or how they perceive or want the world to be, if that makes sense. So I think it's something that you can totally look into. And I think, for our clients, I think they've been more so open to that and wanting that to be something that they basically support and back.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes.
So when from my understanding of the e-commerce aspect, most small or individual people are just trying to find items to sell and market it on e-commerce for their business to sell various things. If you don't have something to sell or an idea, are there ways to find items that might fit into an idea or branding you may want to have?
Yes, you can do things that are private label. You can buy something that is unbranded online, like from places like Alibaba, AliExpress, and technically still brand it to your own style and look. Many brands do that. I think nowadays it's actually more commonplace than you think. Another thing that I would even imagine that people can do as well, and I've been telling people this, is like there's a lot of brands in other countries like Latin America that are actually pretty popular in those countries, but they're not selling in other places. Like I'm from Jamaica, right? And I know there's a lot of Jamaican products that are really good, but they're not selling in the US. And so I think even sometimes that could maybe be a better idea, because you can buy a brand, or let's say the rights to sell a brand in the US, for example, and basically you're not building the product from scratch. You're not doing all this extra legwork. You're basically taking a product that's already exists, that already has a branding identity that could even be very successful, but you're just selling it in the US market. And I think that's honestly even one of the best ways that small businesses can potentially even get themselves started off without having to, invent a supply chain, invent all this stuff. Because at that point, you're just shipping in products, right? You're just ordering from the people overseas, and then you're basically just selling the products here in the US. I think that could actually be a very simple way for you to do products, or do the other part of just, doing like a white or Black label. Oh, and also, if you guys schedule a call with us, I have our contact here. We're giving like 10% off anyone who wants to learn about e-commerce or Amazon. You can just reach out to us here. This is how you can get in touch with us. But yeah, that's also a thing. So as long as you book it within today, we can basically schedule some time to kind of even answer more of your questions, because I understand that, this is not something you can answer off sometimes in like a few minutes.
Right. Well, thank you, Jevon, for that amazing presentation. Let's give him a round of applause, y'all. That was good. Some good information that was shared. Anything in regards to online space and branding is so important for our businesses. So I get excited when I see these type of workshops. We're drawing near to our cutoff time here. So at this time, I would like to bring up our president, Joseph Sanchez, for our final remarks, please.
Well, thanks, Tracy. Again, just want to thank you, Jevon, and the BBIC for bringing this presentation to us today. This is Small Business Week, and I know there's a lot of activities and other things going on. I know that we're recording this also for our website to make this available for people on YouTube. So I'm sure other people will be checking it and finding this information is very helpful as well. But I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I continue to support the Black Chamber and look forward to seeing you guys on future Black Chamber events.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you all.
And thanks guys for really attending. I really do appreciate the time and energy and everything. So really have a great day, guys.
All right, you too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.